We have so many people to thank for this event: Katie McDowell and the Thorn Run team, the Metropolitan Mayor's Consortium, Mayor Frank Bubenik, who will be emceeing the program as the GPI Small City Consortium Chair, and GPI's Engagement and Events Coordinator, Katie Stone, for making this physical to virtual switch seamless for all of us. And of course, Portland General Electric for their sponsorship and continued support of the region and GPI mission. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Please keep yourselves on mute until Mayor Frank calls your name to speak. And please save all questions until the end. You'll have the opportunity to press the raise hand button to ask your question. And with that, I'll pass the virtual mic over to Maria Pope, President of PGE.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Great. Okay. It's just terrific to be with you all. And this is a little bit of a back to the COVID era with looking at so many squares on the screen. We've really appreciate the opportunity to be able to sponsor the event today. And mayors, thank you for your leadership and your dedication to our communities and to our region. I hope that everyone is staying safe at home and dealing with the snow and ice. Please know that PG crews are out there, and we worked around the clock last night, restoring power to over 10,000 customers. And we're continuing to work about 70 events and have about 4,000 customers still out of power. Given the high winds and continued low temperatures, we are sure to see additional outages take place throughout the day and probably into tomorrow and the balance of the week. We appreciate how much we are relied upon, and we fully appreciate, particularly during the tough times, how important reliability is and quick restoration of power, as well as the transparency for all of you and your community members to know when the power will be turned back on. We also appreciate how busy your crews are out there taking care of roads and enabling some of our most vulnerable citizens and community members during these tough times. So thank you for all that you are also doing. We are really proud to be part of this local community. We have been serving this region for over 130 years and helping you, your communities, power the advancement of our society, from streetlights and hookups, new businesses, to resilient microgrids, EV charging, and we reflect your values. We reflect our community's values for a clean, sustainable future. And we are building one of the cleanest energy portfolios in the country. Today, we serve customers with about 39% of renewable power. It comes from hydro plants, it comes from wind farms, it comes from solar farms, and increasingly from battery storage and distributed energy resources. This is up from 35% last year and 30% in 2020. So you can see the significant trajectory that we've made. And we want to thank you, many of you, for participating in the Green Future Impact Program. You're helping us accelerate that leadership. Last week, I also want you to know that we filed for a rate case. Affordability is very important, right along with reliability, as we do make this clean energy transition. And the rate case was for a 14% increase, which is one of our highest ever. And we are keenly aware of the impact, and we work tirelessly to keep our costs low. Let me give you a little bit of perspective. 40% of that rate increase is related to reliability, resiliency, and customer-acquired capital investment. 30% is driven by higher natural gas and purchase energy prices. And then the last 30% is reflective of higher compliance costs and inflation-driven operating and financing costs. Over the last year, market electricity prices have risen by nearly 60%, in many part driven by supply-demand considerations. Actually, we're using 10% more electricity today than we were 5 years ago. And we hope to see this amount coming down because we've seen natural gas prices come off significantly. Over the last 5 years, PGE has worked really hard on our cost structure. We have deployed new technologies and systems to help us be more efficient and more effective. We have also dealt with a lot of wildfires and mitigated other kinds of expenses. And if you subtract out the wildfire and the ice storm of 2021, our generation, transmission, and distribution costs, as well as administrative O&M, are up 1.2% over that 5-year period of time, as we've really focused on cost management to offset the impacts of inflation. I would also say that with the passage of the Inflation and Reduction Act, as well as the Infrastructure Investment Act, we look forward to working in partnership with all of you, with tribal entities, with technology companies, and others to secure federal funding for climate and infrastructure investments and helping to keep customer prices low. These federal funds are essential to the energy transition, to keeping costs low, and to maintaining Oregon's leadership as a clean energy sustainable state. In 2022, we submitted $180 million in grant applications and concept papers. And in the first 6 weeks of 2023, we've submitted an additional $300 million of concept papers. This nearly $480 million in grant applications will support projects totaling about $945 million. So you can see how significant this is to the clean energy economy, to our partnerships with all of you, and to the region. And recently, I want to thank particularly Mayors Callaway and Mayor Stovall for all of the work that was done, as well as many others, on the Semiconductor Task Force. It's our hope that we can bring in funds from the CHIPS Act to our state. And one of the things that surprised me and I learned during this process was that over 15% of this country's semiconductor production takes place right here in Oregon. It is critically important for our educational system, for our workforce, as well as for our overall vitality of our communities. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you as we're talking with many in Salem about how we in Oregon can match some of these funds. So we're excited to hear from you, our mayors, today. And with that, let me hand it over to City of Tualatin, Mayor Bubenik. Mayor Bubenik?
Thanks, Maria. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for coming today. I want to again thanks PGE for sponsoring this event today. Kind of bummed that we can't be meeting at Brick South in Tualatin. They are recently opened restaurant, took the place of Hayden's here in Tualatin, and they're doing bang up business. So we got to see how well the renovation has gone inside their space and their quality of food and service, but maybe next time. So with that, we're going to start introductions of the mayors who are attending today. I think I've got everybody listed as I was scrolling through my screen here. And I'm going to go by in order of the city's name. And I'm going to ask each mayor to introduce themselves, keep it to about a minute or so. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your length of service, and if you want a fun fact that we don't know about you. And so leading today will be, of course, Mayor Lacey Batey in Beaverton. She's a pro at this and she's used to going first. So Lacey, the floor is yours.
Good morning, friends. I am Lacey Beaty, the very lucky mayor of Beaverton. I have been mayor for 40 years. No, I'm just kidding too. But as a crisis pandemic mayor, it feels like forever. And I am so glad that Zoom has made it so none of us could have snow days ever again in our future, since I've been sitting at my desk all morning. However, my 5-year-old vice mayor disagrees. So if you hear her screaming, "Let it go" in the background, she's now on her third viewing of some Disney shows in the background here for us. So fun facts, that's always like a rough one. One I think people will probably find interesting is my husband and I ran with the bulls for our honeymoon when we got married 18 years ago.
Cool. All right. I think I saw, there's my East Coast coming in, Mayor Schirado from Durham. You're muted, Gery.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Gery Schirado, Mayor of Durham. I don't know if it's a fun fact, but I can tell you that both chronologically and in term of office, I'm the oldest and longest serving mayor in Washington County. I won't tell you how old I am, but I will tell you that I have been mayor for about 26 years. So I'm either doing something right or nobody has caught on yet. And I'm going to leave it at that before I get myself in too much trouble.
All right, thanks, Gery. A brand another new mayor is Mayor Wenzl from Forest Grove.
Sorry about that. Of course, I was getting a phone call right as you introduced me. So my name's Malynda Wenzl, and I was elected mayor last November. I've been on city council for 8 years prior to that. I teach at Neil Armstrong Middle School in Forest Grove. And I think a fun fact, I don't know if it's really fun. I think Mayor Lacey had me beat. But I have a twin sister, and my twin sister has twins. So I'm always twinning and winning. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. I saw Mayor Milch from Gladstone, I believe, in the crew here.
Hi, I'm Michael Milch from Gladstone. I was elected this past November, and so I'm starting my first term as mayor. I was a former city councilor. A fun fact about me, I guess, I have 5 children in the Gladstone school system, and most of them spend a lot of time in our home. My wife and I take care of a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. And the snowstorm today closed the schools and prevented me from having to juggle my schedule quite a bit. I would have been able to make it out to Tualatin even, but I'm glad to be here online with all of you.
Great, thank you. Okay. Mayor of the biggest city in Washington County, Mr. Callaway, Mayor Callaway.
Thank you. And so, I think for me that the most interesting fact is realizing that Gery, Mayor Schirado, has been mayor longer than Malynda has been alive. But my service as mayor, this is my 7th year. I've been on council since 2000. I was elected in 2010. And I guess a fun fact, a meaningful fact to me is, having met Jimmy Carter when he came, one of the times that he came to Portland for his book tours.
All right. Thanks, Steve. So let's see. Next up, I think, is Mayor Joe Buck of Lake Oswego. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you, Mayor Frank. I'm Joe Buck, Mayor of Lake Oswego, the largest and greatest city in Clackamas County. It's great to be here with all of you today. I've been Mayor of Lake Oswego since 2020 and served on a term on the council but before that, and grew up here in the community as well. Fun fact about me, I'm trying to think of what to share. I got some good, GPI related stories, but I think I'll share that. I play the fiddle, which I think is great for elected officials because we spend a lot of time listening to the violin, right? So good to be here.
All right. Thanks, Joe. The new mayor of Milwaukie, Mayor Lisa Beaty.
Hi, I'm Lisa Batey. Like Mayor Wenzl, I was elected in November after 8 years being a counselor. And I'm a retired I was an attorney for the federal government, retired last summer before I ran for office. And fun fact about me, I guess, is that I lived in Kyrgyzstan for a year and I speak Russian. And I have traveled in 11 of the 15 former Soviet republics, which I guess I'm thankful I did then, because who knows when we'll be able to do that kind of travel again now.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to the mayor of the great city of North Plains, Mayor Lenahan.
Hey, hello. Thank you, Mayor Frank. I appreciate that. So my name's Teri Lenahan, Mayor of North Plains, where fun stinks. And we happen to be the home of the infamous Elephant Garlic Festival with some good Elephant Garlic Festival ice cream and beer and you name it. So our fun gets stinky around August. So hope to see you all out here the second weekend in August. I think one of fun fact is I'm secretly a crazy cat lady. I never liked cats. Was never a cat person until my husband brought one home. He retired about 6 years ago and brought one home, and it became my cat. And now to this day, I'm sharing a room right now with a cat. So if my cat starts to meow or scratching at the door, I might have to get up and let the doggone thing out there in the snow. I've been trying all day, but he won't go. So thanks, Frank.
All right, Teri. Next up is the mayor of Portland, Mayor Ted Wheeler.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody. Good morning. My name's Ted Wheeler. I'm the mayor of the city of Portland. I've been mayor for a little bit over 6 years, going on 2 centuries. I don't know what fun fact, it's snowing out, so maybe I'll just hearken to the past. Years ago, I snowshoed to the North Pole, which was a really exciting experience. I didn't realize at the time I'd be one of the last people to be able to do that. So as I get older, I appreciate that experience more and more.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. All right, next up is a gentleman I haven't seen in person in a long time, the Mayor Stan Pulliam. Welcome, Stan.
Thank you. Welcome. Well, thank you for having me, Stan Pulliam, Mayor of Sandy, going on my 5th year as mayor. And fun fact, it's a young legislative age. This is the 20-year anniversary of legalizing professional wrestling in the state of Oregon. I'm the official, they named me the official champion of Oregon. I got a belt that hangs on my wall that drives my young girls just crazy. They think it's the dorkiest thing in the world. But I'm not taking any challenges for it. No challenges. I want the honorary role. So
no cage matches?
Well, maybe a cage match. I don't know. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dan. Next up is my adjacent city, Mayor of Sherwood, the brand new Mayor of Sherwood, Tim Rosener.
Thank you, Frank, and thank you everyone for attending today and welcome. So yes, I'm Tim Rosener, the Mayor of the City of Sherwood, and the home of the Sherwood Robin Hood Festival, for those of you who may have attended that. And yes, we were named after Sherwood Forest over in Nottingham over in England. So fun fact, what could I say? I am to the core a nerd when it comes to anything space. And to that point, I'm really big in promoting STEM. I serve on the board of Oregon Space Camp Adventures, where we organize STEM education, and we take 50 kids to space camp every year in Huntsville, Alabama. We raise money, we do scholarships, and it's a lot of fun. So if there are any fellow space nerds in the room here, feel free to give me a call. We can talk for hours.
Thanks, Tim. That brings up City of Tualatin. I'm Frank Bubenik, the mayor of Tualatin. I'm in my second 4-year term, my last term. We're term limited here in Tualatin. Spent 8 years on the Tualatin City Council prior to being elected mayor. My fun fact, similar to Mayor Batey in Beaverton, my friend and I from the Army were in Kenya on a photographic safari walking through the bush. We ended up running with the giraffes because the giraffes were chasing us through the bush. And you're not going to outrun a giraffe. And these things are gigantic when they are chasing you. But that's my fun fact. Now we'll shift up to the north, the city of Vancouver, to Mayor Ann.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Frank. Ann McEnerny-Ogle, mayor for the city of Vancouver in my 6th year. City of Vancouver, population-wise, take Tiger, Tualatin, and Beaverton, add them all up together, we're larger than that. Thank you very much. Fun fact, I born and raised in Oregon, Eugene, go South Eugene Axe, taught mathematics in Lake Oswego 30 years, and I teach Dutch oven cooking.
Ooh, all right. Thank you, Ann. And wrapping up, I think I saw Mayor Fitzgerald from the city of Wilsonville.
Thank you, Mayor Bubenik, our next door neighbor. I'm Julie Fitzgerald. I'm the mayor of Wilsonville, and I'm entering my 3rd year and really enjoying it. I was on the city council for 4 years, a few years prior, and decided not to run again at that time because I was really doing a lot of traveling with my job. And so that leads into my fun fact. In my career, though I started with a degree in animal science from Oregon State University, I moved into major gift fundraising and healthcare, and I've worked in Oregon City, OHSU Foundation, and other programs like that. How did I decide to major in animal science? That's because I grew up on a very remote 1,100 acre sheep ranch down in the Southwest Oregon corner in Curry County. So if you have any questions about sheep or cattle or how to avoid getting fleeced, let me know.
Thanks, Julie. All right, Jocelyn, did I miss anybody who maybe popped in late?
I just reviewed the list and I don't think so, but maybe give like a second for anybody to speak up that we might have missed. All righty.
All right. Okay, that brings us to our mayor's roundtable. I'm again going to do an order of cities. So what the GPI is asking is that spend about approximately 5 minutes discussing two things: your 2023 legislative priorities and your city's economic development strategies in the last year or so. And to kick it off again, we'll go with Mayor Batey of Beaverton.
I do know there's a lot of media on this call, so I hope the headline coming out of today is Mayor of Tualatin chased by giraffes and lives to tell. So, I don't want to cut right to the chase for you guys, but that's the story coming out of today. Thank you for the two great questions. I would say our legislative priority at the city of Beaverton is to spend other people's money. So we work really hard in the legislature to get them to understand cities' needs, just like all mayors do. Really unfunded mandates are killing cities a lot this year. We have a lot more coming out. I think they just dropped 250 bills in the last day. Per our charter, I'm heavily engaged in our government relations, and so it's a part of the job that I love the most. We're working closely on issues around the ONA bill and how it impacts housing. I think we can all agree we want to. Oh, here's the vice mayor. Hey, can you go sit with daddy? Mommy's like in the middle of something. Hey, Ian, thanks. She's real upset. But all right, let me get my footing here again. So we're working a lot on the housing bill around homeless issues. All mayors on this call are working with the legislators and calling with them to help fund cities. Our general funds just cannot continue to take the brunt of this humanitarian crisis that's unfolding on the streets across Oregon. I join and echo the calls for mayors in this region that this is not just a Portland problem, and we got to collectively work together to solve this. And homelessness in every community looks different, and we need the tools to solve it. So I would say that's the majority of what I've been doing in the legislature this year. Our city produces legislative framework. What's important to the council is climate, homelessness, and issues that really hit us, like childcare. And so a lot of our strategies around how we lobby, both at the state and federal level, is through that lens, making sure that families can succeed in Beaverton. Making sure they have the resources to go to work and have childcare and come home and be able to afford to live in arguably the best city in Oregon. And our economic strategy mirrors that. We want to be a destination place. We want people to live here and work here. Just this last year, we opened 18 restaurants in our downtown core. And some of those awesome ones are Pip's Donuts. We have Pinball Wizard opening. Breakside Brewing is doing a big West Side expansion with a food cart pod right here in downtown Beaverton. If you've not visited our restaurant row, it's quite astonishing and amazing. We've had about 26 restaurants open up since the pandemic has started. Really great local businesses. We pride ourselves in that. We had an economic business strategy from when Randy Ely worked for our city, and we really focused on making sure that if we wanted restaurants to open here, we needed to create the environment in which that could happen. So we created through our bureau, our downtown urban redevelopment, money for storefront improvement, for tenant relocation, for tenant improvement. Our economic development team went and visited businesses and literally sat outside asking them to come to Beaverton. Beaverton is a young, diverse city. The average age person here is 34. Portland is 44. And so really making sure that we cater to the needs for big businesses like Nike. We're diverse, we're young, we're into athletic things, and we want to drink beer after a hard day at work. So that's some of what we're doing. I would also say that we have an insane retail vacancy rate right now, 1.4%. People want to come and work in Beaverton, and we're removing all barriers to make sure that they have a place and a place to land when they come here. I worked with the National League of Cities this year on a pilot childcare initiative program, which launches in March. And it's a concierge level service similar to what we did with restaurants. If we want childcare to not be a desert in our community, we need to intentionally recruit to come here. So with some tenant improvement grants, we're working on issues around permitting and making sure that if you want to open a childcare facility, our economic development team is going to help you through the regulatory environment. That's what we can control from the city. We can't control how much people are paid or where they're at. And so focusing on what cities do best, which is remove barriers, get them into retail establishment and help them succeed. That's where the city's mainstay is. And that's what we're super, super good at. I would also say we're a city that's taken homelessness head on. We raised over $10 million outside of our general fund to be able to open a West Side year-round shelter. We purchased a building last year. We're working through tenant improvement. And I worked with the Harvard Bloomberg Institute on a pretty unique program. We just sent 8 staff that included not just City of Beaverton, but county, our fire department, our parks department, to New York for a week-long intensive process to be able to address street homelessness through every level of government. And so we have a desire to see decreased street homelessness in Beaverton. And as the mayor, I knew I had to kickstart a plan. So he just came back from New York last week. We're expecting that plan. It's complementary to what we're doing in the shelter. And as we're going to the state to say that cities are innovative places, you need to invest in us because we understand better than anyone what our community needs. So, here at the city, this week we're tackling big things: climate change, childcare, and homelessness. I'm sure you're going to hear this story from all my colleagues as well. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to brag about the best city in Oregon.
Thanks, Lacey. Next up is Gery Schirado of Durham. You're muted, Gery. Been doing this for 2 or 3 years, Gery. Come on.
I don't know.
Now he froze up.
No, can you hear me now?
We got you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to Mayor Beaty for taking up some of my time. I don't have to speak as long. Thank you, Lacey. Both of your questions you asked us to address the legislative agenda and economic development. To my peers, particularly those of you who have been in office for a while, you recognize the fact that Durham is probably, if not the smallest, certainly one of the smallest communities in the county and in the metropolitan region. As such, we do not have a separate legislative agenda that affects us uniquely and solely, but we are, as a conjunctive member of the MMC and of the regional governments, totally supportive of those programs that enrich and enhance all of our neighbors. Durham is in the position that as the region prospers, so does Durham. It's not as though Durham prospers, the region prospers. So we're very, very concerned and very connected with our neighbors and that which is necessary for them to grow and flourish. Same way in economic development. We're built out. We're landlocked. We've achieved about as much as we can do in terms of where we can go with economic development. Our charter prohibits us from any type of commercial development. You will not find a retail outlet, nor will you find a church, school, anything that resembles something that would be identified perhaps as a downtown area or a business core. That's not part of what of the complexion of Durham. So I can honestly tell you that we have continued to grow in very incremental ways. Our population has grown from approximately 365 souls who were here when Durham was incorporated 50 years ago to approximately now 1,800. And that's about 2,000 is probably about our projected population growth. We continue to support economically our neighbors because that's where our economic sources come from. As I said, there are no grocery stores, there are no gas stations in Durham. We can also attest to the fact that we've been able to do this for over 20 years with one of the lowest tax bases in the state at 47 cents per thousand. And we've actually begun to grow and have a surplus in our general fund. And that's really by shepherding our resources as best we can, being as frugal as we can, and being very cognizant of the monies of our citizens that we're spending. I've joked with our neighboring mayors in Tigard and Tualatin over several years that our population here has remained relatively constant. People move into Durham, they don't move out. And that's the theme, if you will, of what our government here is attempting to continue to do. We've kind of been compared to the legendary city of Brigadoon. We're the happiest village in the world, but we only appear once every 100 years. So we want to keep it that way as long as we possibly can, but also fulfill our commitment to our neighbors, to our other communities, to the region, to the state, in order to encourage the economic growth that needs to propel the engine of this state and make sure that all citizens, whether they're in Durham or any other place, particularly in the metropolitan region, enjoy the best possible atmosphere and life that they can participate in. Thank you.
Thanks, Gery. That brings us to Mayor Wenzl of Forest Grove.
Thank you, Mayor. Over in Forest Grove, our legislative priorities are similar to what I've heard previously from the two previous mayors. So we're really working on affordable housing. The way that Forest Grove sits with the urban growth boundary, there's opportunity for us, to look at affordable housing and make sure that our policies and advocate for moves to make sure that we can provide more affordable housing in our area. Homelessness is a huge issue for us, just like many of my colleagues in the county and the area. I think too, I'm proud of some of the work Forest Grove has done working with Metro. We use our CEP grant system to create a community impact grant 3 years ago. That community impact grant lasted for 3 years and was trying to make a huge impact on an issue. So recently, the first award winner of that was the Forest Grove Foundation, who provides services for homelessness. So I'm really proud of that. I thought that was an innovative approach that we as a city took. Economic development, we don't have a lot of industry in Forest Grove, so I think it's really, really important as we try to entice industry in Forest Grove that House Bill 2199, which extends the sunset of the enterprise zone, that gets passed legislatively. So hopefully we can encourage industry in our community. We have a great downtown. We have Pacific University in our downtown core, and then lots of great restaurants, walkability. So we use ARPA funds to create small business grant programs, and really just make sure we could storefront improvement with our URA, just to try to keep those small businesses vitality in town, and then also trying to create a draw for industry. I think that's our main economic approach. Yeah, so that's what I got for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Mayor Milch of Gladstone.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Gladstone, we are a city of 12,000 residents located just across the Clackamas River from Oregon City in Clackamas County. We are, and I say this with some regret, perhaps best known as the place where many of you bought your car, home to a wide assortment of automobile dealerships and a DMV office conveniently located a few blocks away. If Oregon were a state that imposed a sales tax on automobiles and allocated a portion of it to the municipality in which they were purchased, having 18 auto dealerships in a 1 mile span of roadway would make Gladstone rich beyond our dreams. Alas, this is not the case. Not that I'm advocating for that. Each time I drive past the signs showing Volkswagen, Honda, Nissan, Mazda, Toyota, Kia, and Hyundai, I can't help but wonder if there are more economic benefits accruing to the people of Germany, Japan, and South Korea from these local businesses than there are to the citizens of Gladstone. And I also wonder how long it will take before the way we buy and sell automobiles will evolve into the same way we buy and sell nearly everything else these days, remotely over the internet. Which one of these car dealerships will be the first to realize that perhaps a far better use of their valuable real estate along McLaughlin Boulevard might be to have a 1-story auto showroom on the ground floor of a 4 or 5-story apartment building filled with residents who emerge every morning to board a high-frequency electric commuter bus that takes them to their jobs on the days they're not working from home over a high-speed internet connection. A little more about Gladstone. The 2.5 square mile city I served was the ancestral homelands of the Clackamas, Chinook, and Kalapuya native peoples. When Judge Harvey Cross founded the city in 1911, he named it for a British Prime Minister named William Gladstone. Some local residents and businesses whimsically refer to our town as Happy Rock. But years ago, a friend of mine told me that the name Gladstone to her denoted 2 qualities: positivity and permanence. In governing, I like to focus on the positive, what some call the glad in Gladstone, asking what are our strengths, our assets, and how can we build on them? In other words, what makes us glad and how can we set it in stone? So we direct our energy to connecting local assets with one another in ways that amplify their power and effectiveness, giving them positivity and permanence. One of our greatest local assets is the Gladstone School District. Having 1 kindergarten, 1 elementary school, 1 middle school, and 1 high school contributes to lifelong connections and a tight-knit sense of community among students and their families. For a small district, we consistently punch above our weight class with a graduation rate above the state average and producing state-level champions in everything from robotics to cheerleading to symphonic band, all endeavors that require coordination and precision and teamwork. And our district has invested in career and technical education programs that are unmatched by much larger high schools in the region. Programs that we will soon be expanding to include adults looking to advance their own professional development. It's not all rosy. According to our latest housing needs analysis, Gladstone has only about 1% of its total citywide land area available for housing development, about 16 total acres. We are, as they say, built out. I, for one, am grateful to a state legislature that has prompted us to give residential property owners the freedom to develop a variety of new housing options in existing single household residential neighborhoods, because we'll need those missing middle houses to accommodate the young families who are drawn to our city by our school system and our livability. And needless to say, Gladstone doesn't have any suitable multi-acre sites for a semiconductor factory either, so we won't be engaging in the process of determining what level of incentives and tax breaks will enable us to at least break even on the economic benefits derived from having such an industry nearby. But what we do have is proximity and connection to nearby unincorporated communities of urban Clackamas County that hold a promise of transformational placemaking and economic reinvention. The 99E corridor between Gladstone and Milwaukie across the Willamette River from West Lynn and Lake Oswego has the potential to become the ideal testing ground for the concept of a 15-minute city, where a multitude of needs are within walking or biking distance. Toll-free living at its best with local access to parks and riverbanks and streams. I'm excited by the prospect of working collaboratively with Clackamas County's new economic development manager, Laura Edmonds, on realizing an assortment of hopes and dreams for our city and for our adjacent communities. remaking the relationship between place and economy in ways that generate broad-based, equitable, and locally led prosperity. Thank you.
Frank, you're on mute.
I'm just as bad as Gery now. Right. That brings us to Mayor Callaway of Hillsboro.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to focus on a couple of our priorities. One is the Oregon Mayors Association Homeless Task Force request, which would provide $40 per capita to each city in Oregon with a minimum of $50,000. And this is a proposal that came out of a task force of mayors, has been signed on to by well over 100 cities throughout our state, and it's the largest response we've ever had from our cities. Homelessness is a common problem throughout our state, but the solutions are unique as our cities. And we know that the legislature, and the executive branch, with the governor is more would prefer to see the point in time count. But we know that which is done one night every other year is inaccurate and woefully undercounts the number of homeless individuals. And so that is one of our major priorities. Another one is the supporting legislation that supports the recommendations that came out of Senator Wyden, his semiconductor task force, which was co-led by CEO Maria Pope and Congresswoman Bonamici and Senator Wyden. So anyway, those are the two things. And one of the things I want to stress with that task force is just the sense of urgency with which we need Salem to respond, and also recognizing that it is an equity issue because it allows folks to get into good jobs that are stable, have benefits, and have retirement. And you can do that without taking on onerous college debt. You can do it with as little as a high school diploma or an AA degree. So that is critical for our state to take advantage of this once in a generation opportunity. So the other thing I would just say, with economic development strategy is, we are nimble, we are creative, we are engaged, whether it's in Salem, whether it's with companies from Europe, Japan, whether it is our current suppliers, helping them expand, helping folks relocate, working with our partners at GPI. We are supportive of the efforts, recognizing that, what's good for the region, what's good for the state is good for Hillsboro and vice versa. So that's how I'll take 2.5, 3 minutes of my 5 minutes, and I'll turn it back over to Frank. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Steve. That brings up Mayor Buck of Lake Oswego.
Thank you very much. It's always hard to follow my good friend, Mayor Callaway. So our kind of the three principles that we're following with our legislative priorities are preserving home rule authority, avoiding unfunded mandates, of course, and leveraging regional and state partnerships. And we're applying those principles to topics of climate, housing, local land use control, infrastructure funding, including funding for transportation, stormwater, wastewater, and drinking water. And specifically, we are, in addition to the priorities my colleagues have mentioned, we're supporting legislative funding packages that address wild land urban interface preparedness, which is a big topic for us, and supporting grants and other funding opportunities for community emergency preparedness, which is a council priority this year. Climate is a top priority as within other cities, and so we're supporting legislative efforts that advance local ability to combat climate change with our own authority. So on the topic of economic development, Lake Oswego, we are the largest city in Clackamas County, but we're still a relatively small metro area city, but we pack a big punch. We're home to not only the largest Class A office space in the county, but also light industrial areas, and we support a thriving retail environment in 2 town centers and neighborhood commercial hubs. We have 2 urban renewal areas in Lake Oswego, one in our downtown, which has been in existence for decades now, and coming near the end of its life, and then one in the Lake Grove Town Center. We've recently completed what has been the city's largest infrastructure investment project, which is the Boones Ferry Road project. It's a business district transportation and beautification project. That has now spurred quite a bit of redevelopment along that corridor as intended, which is fantastic. And it's improved multimodal connectivity between the town center and the abutting neighborhoods. In our downtown, the final urban renewal project of that district is what we call the North Anchor. That's a mixed-use boutique hotel, retail, and multifamily housing, which will include what will be the first secured affordable housing in our downtown. As we know, urban renewal does often serve to price residents out. So we're glad that in both the downtown and in the Lake Grove areas, both those districts have affordable housing included coming online, the first for Lake Oswego, which is a huge deal, and that we're opening our doors to folks for whom financial barriers to living alone would exist. So on that topic as well, housing is a huge topic for the council this year, ensuring that we have housing of a variety of types that is affordable to people at all income levels. As many people know, I mean, throughout the metro area, affordability is a challenge, but that's especially pronounced in Lake Oswego. We have a great task force that we have convened this year, partnering with neighbors, builders, service providers, and the state to create pathways to accomplishing a greater diversity of housing types and housing affordability. And then on the softer side, much of our approach in LO, aside from infrastructure investments, is just in our customer service approach to city business. We operate with a culture of problem solving and facilitation for those looking to do business here. Lake Oswego has a very, very strong local business community that stands with open arms to welcome new business, and we are supported by a great city team working to make those transitions easy and seamless. And another thing that's a little different for LO this year is we're here participating at the regional level. That has not always been the case in our city. So it's a pleasure for me to be here with GPI, and Lake Oswego is taking a more pronounced role advocating at the regional and state levels on topics that are important to us all. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Joe. Mayor Batey of Milwaukie, the floor is yours. You're muted. Yep.
There we go. Sorry. Thought I hit unmute. Thank you for this opportunity. I would say everyone's covered our legislative priorities as well. Housing and houselessness, childcare, utility assistance, and climate-related bills are kind of forefront for us. Also getting more police training capacity is a big one for, I think, everyone. So let me talk a little bit about Milwaukie. After a couple of decades of pretty minimal growth, when the Orange Line light rail came in 2015, we saw a growth. We are undergoing a growth spurt. In 2016, we did our housing needs analysis, and in the decade from 2016 to 2026, we will see about 1,800 new apartments, which is basically doubling the number of apartments in Milwaukie. We've seen about 200 to 250 new single-family homes. We have the first, a couple of cottage cluster developments on the drawing board, and a fairly large parcel that left over on Johnson Creek Boulevard that I am expecting to see be townhomes. So we are taking the need for different housing categories and prices to heart in Milwaukie. When I asked our community development director, what brings businesses to Milwaukie, or what do we need to highlight? He said in his experience, two things really are the reasons that businesses give when they come looking at Milwaukie. One is the tax rate is lower than in Portland and Multnomah County, while still being very central and accessible to the talent that is there and the workforce that is there. And the second being the more manageable approach to that safety and houselessness are more manageable in a smaller community. And I just lost my notes. Hold on just a second. Okay, I'm gonna have to do it without notes. So on that regard, the houselessness and the safety, I really give a lot of credit to the Milwaukie Police Department, which has done a phenomenal job. They're very professional, responsive, compassionate, open to listening and meeting with the community. They brought us a camping bill last fall. We now have a camping ordinance that allows people who are, without homes to sleep in public areas, but not to establish a camp. So they have to pack up in the morning and move on. That's been a pretty successful model for us. We also hired our first behavioral health specialist to work with the police department. And that has been a real boon for, and not just for houseless, frankly, because he works with mental health issues, and a lot of the people that, they're not, people with those issues are not necessarily houseless. So that's really sort of what we've heard from some businesses about why they are interested in Milwaukie. I will note we also we have the enterprise zone program. We have 2 businesses right now newly taking advantage of that. We have an urban renewal district with some storefront improvements, some funds for investing in machinery for small businesses or equipment like a coffee roaster or those kind of things to help small businesses get up and running. We also, like Gladstone, do not have any large plots for semiconductors, but we are about to have a 10-acre parcel that's been operated by the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, who's building a new campus out in Canby. So that is going to go on sale next year, as I understand it. And so that's a prime site for some investment. We have several other sites. All of our industrial areas really could be reused for higher and better purpose, I think. We do have a lot of great businesses: Dave's Killer Bread, Bob's Red Mill, Megget OECO, Oregon Tool. So we do have a robust business community that to build on. And I guess I will stop with that. I did just want to say, I am supposed to get on a plane at 4 o'clock and United Airlines tells me it's still going. So I'm going to turn my camera off. I'm going to listen as long as I can, but I may not be able to stay till the end of the meeting.
All right.
Thank you.
Good luck, Mayor Beaty. Hopefully that plane does take off. All right. Next up is Mayor Lenahan, and Mayor Wheeler's on deck.
All right. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate that. As Mayor Callaway explained earlier, the Oregon Mayors Association has put together a homelessness proposal and submitted that to the state for consideration. And so, as we all know, homelessness is a very complex and it's a very complex problem. And as mayors, we know our cities and we know the people in our cities and we know what our cities needs. And it's just really extremely important for us to continue to advocate for our cities and this OMA homelessness proposal. Our priorities many of you have already mentioned a lot of what our priorities are as well. But in November 2022, the City Council adopted a resolution identifying the 4 priorities found in our economic opportunities analysis. And the first one is local economic development, growth, grow local and regional business investment, build on our growing diverse culture, and expand the local presence and investment in our local economy. As a fiscally challenged community of about 3,500, we are looking to expand that job housing balance by diversifying our employment and industrial opportunities through our urban growth boundary expansion. So we have submitted it to DLCD. It went through an appeal process. And so now we're past that. So we're really excited to be able to go to the next step and to identify the land around North Plains that we want to bring into our UGB. And I will also note that the land currently around North Plains is undesignated land, and we're really excited to be able to make that identification here in the next couple of months and to see where and how we can grow for our future. We've been planning our economic path for many years, and we have put so much effort and so much time that goes well beyond what is ordinarily expected of a small city. The hours and hours and hours of planning and discussion and community conversation has just been a phenomenal process. One thing to know, we are a fiscally sinking under the weight of being a bedroom community. So we don't have a lot of large businesses and things like, we have small businesses. We've got a couple of large businesses in town. We have a lumber and another company that predominantly employ quite a few people that come into our town. And we have a lot of small businesses, but it is our tax base is really terribly out of balance, 80-20. And so we have really been working at trying to figure out, how to make it more equitable and make it more balanced within our own community. So based on the need that is explained in our economic opportunities analysis, we're including over 160 acres for residential land and over 600 acres for industrial and commercial land. Recently, we submitted testimony to the state's Joint Semiconductor Committee expressing our desire to be considered for a large semiconductor site. We are very excited about that process. We're hopeful, obviously, but you just never know. Regardless, we still are moving forward with our UGB expansion. However, our target really is to complement existing businesses nearby, but also expanding our own industrial and commercial needs. We have just been a bedroom community for far too long. We have a lot of workforce housing here in North Plains. Folks live here and then they go to work in all of your cities and in communities and businesses in various cities and that sort of thing. So we want to just try to flip that switch a little bit to provide more opportunity for the people here in our community, and then to also draw new folks to our community. But more importantly, to find that tax-based balance so that we can live, work, and play in this community. I, for one, leave this community every day to go work in a neighboring city. And although I love my neighboring city and I love where my office is, I would really love to be able to work and live in North Plains. So we're working really hard with our state partners, with our local partners, and with our community members to try to figure all that out. So more to come. And if anyone ever wants to come to North Plains and take a tour and sit down and have a taco with me, I'm buying. And yeah, we'll go from there. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Teri. Mayor Wheeler, the floor is yours.
All right, I think I'm unmuted there. Well, first of all, I want to thank GPI and the Metro Mayors Consortium for this conversation. This is a great conversation, and I appreciate being part of it. I know we're here discussing economic development, but I've got to just note that most mayors have led with homelessness as an impediment to potential economic development. And I'm going to follow the same refrain, but I also just want to put in a strong plug, as some of my other mayors have, for the legislature to support the Mayors Association ask of the legislature for funding to help us address homelessness at the local level. There is funding that goes through other sources, but we really need the resources and the flexibility at the local level to be able to address homelessness as it exists in our community. As I mentioned during my introduction, I've been mayor for 6 years. I've been in politics for a little over 15, believe it or not. And I recall that at the beginning of my tenure, when I was county chair, we did talk about homelessness, but it was never front and center as an economic development issue. And it wasn't discussed as a statewide issue. And I'm just mindful of the fact that on this call, we have a diversity of mayors from a diversity of communities all over talking about this as being a focal point. I want to focus my remarks on homelessness. It is by far our most important issue. Compassionately and effectively addressing the homelessness situation is indispensable to our economy and fostering a sense of shared prosperity, not only in the city of Portland, but throughout the state of Oregon. I would argue that if Portland suffers, the state also suffers economically. Just a couple of facts according to our last point in time count, not the one that was just completed. That data is still outstanding, but we saw a 50% increase in the unsheltered population over a 3-year period. I have stated my collective goal clearly. Our goal should be to eliminate unsanctioned, unsheltered camping in Portland. That is the goal towards which I am working. To do that, we need a workable and compassionate means to connect people to whatever services they need to get off and stay off the streets. For some, it could be shelter. For others, it could be treatment or workforce training. Obviously, housing is a persistent need that other people have discussed, as well as other services. Currently, there are hundreds of unsanctioned camps spread out across virtually every neighborhood of our city. So hundreds spread out over 146 square miles. And I mention that because it makes it impossible to hire enough outreach workers to meaningfully connect people to services, including housing and shelter. And as a result of that, I think the Oregonian also indicated that 99% of the people who go into congregate shelter end up back on the streets. I may have that fact not quite right, but a significant number. Due to the dispersed nature of homelessness, there's really no way to provide the kind of consistent case management and follow-up required to successfully connect people to the services with the number of camps we have. According to the Oregonian, 95% of the people experiencing homelessness that they surveyed indicated that they've never been approached by an outreach worker or offered any services. I would argue that as such, the status quo is not a compassionate response. Leaving vulnerable Portlanders to live outside, particularly on a day like this, is putting them in danger. And it doesn't help the community either. We know that homelessness is not only a catastrophe for the people living on the streets, but it creates, as you've heard, public health, public safety, and livability concerns as well. There is overwhelming evidence that the homeless individuals face incredible dangers on our street. A recent report found that 20% of all homicide victims in 2021 in Portland were homeless. 20%, even though they only make up about 0.5% of the population at large. The Multnomah County Health Department found that at least 193 homeless individuals died in 2021. That was a 53% increase over the prior year, and the most recent data supports that. Furthermore, they found the average age of death amongst homeless men to be 48 and amongst women 46. That is more than 3 decades earlier than the average life expectancy in the United States. Between 2019 and 21, Portland Fire and Rescue responded to over 2,500 fires in homeless encampments. That's half of all of the structure fires in the city of Portland. And sadly, 31% of Portland's fire deaths in 2021 were those in the unhoused population. 31%. So the safety of both people living on the streets as well as the broader community is clearly at risk as a result of unsanctioned homeless camps. So what's driving the issue here in Portland is, as somebody else said, people are homeless for a variety of different reasons. It's complex. Research suggests that a lack of affordable housing is the key driver, and the provision of that housing can't be overlooked as a strategy to either preventing or ending homelessness. But the intersection between homelessness, substance use, and behavioral health issues really complicates the situation in Portland for many. A lot of people assume that people become homeless because they either are addicted to drugs or they have behavioral health issues. Some undoubtedly are, but the vast majority of people are homeless first, then they begin to use drugs or develop behavioral health issues later. As you know, in 2020, Oregon voters passed Measure 110 to become the first state in the nation to criminalize personal possession of drugs. It was also intended to provide new resources for desperately needed drug treatment programs. And while I certainly support the intent of Measure 110, I think we can all agree that the funding has been way too slow to be deployed, and the state's drug treatment infrastructure continues to fail despite efforts of many people in the treatment community. Making matters even worse, two relatively new, cheap, and widely available synthetic drugs are wreaking havoc in Portland as well as all across the country. The first, of course, is P2P meth, sometimes called the new meth. It can cause severe psychosis, brain damage, and antisocial behavior, including violent outbursts, destructive behavior, and extreme paranoia. It turns out that Oregon has the highest meth use rates in the United States. In 2021, meth contributed to nearly half of all homeless deaths in Multnomah County. The second synthetic drug, fentanyl, is, in my opinion, even worse, and our community's awash in it. It's cheaper and it's more potent than heroin. According to the Multnomah County Medical Examiner, fentanyl overdoses in Portland increased 588% over a recent 2-year period. Across all age group, Oregon's fentanyl death rate grew by almost 500% during a recent 2-year period, and Oregon leads the nation in the growth of youth fentanyl deaths, with the death rate for kids aging 15 to 19 increasing over 900% between 2019 and 2021. Yet Oregon has only 4 youth treatment programs, all with extensive waiting lists. So we've seen the damage that fentanyl can cause. There was a number of high-profile cases. There was a case a few weeks ago where somebody was high on fentanyl and cannabis and alcohol, attacked somebody because he thought he was a robot. Recently, the city of Portland conducted a drug bust where there were 2 kilos and 30,000 fentanyl tablets that were confiscated. I was told that's enough to kill 1 million people. And we've had larger amounts confiscated in Portland and Eugene and elsewhere around the state. My personal view is that when outside players transport substances through our communities with the intent to harm or kill millions of Americans, there is a name for this: weapon of mass destruction. And I appreciate that many in our federal government are starting to see it as such, and I hope that we here in the Portland take this as seriously. The bottom line is that synthetic drugs are complicating the conditions required to successfully address homelessness. And I think we all know that on behavioral health, the issue is much the same. We rank near the top in the nation in terms of the need, near the bottom of the list in terms of resources that are available for behavioral health treatment. I think last I saw, we were 49th out of 50 states. And on top of that, of course, we have historically underinvested in housing. So we have this triad of housing, of concerns around drug treatment programs, concerns around access to behavioral health, recovery programs. These things are wreaking havoc in our community. And that's why it's so important for the state to support the ask that we put on the table for the mayors. If we receive funding, what we will do is pursue a 3-pronged strategy. You've heard about the resolutions brought before the Portland City Council, they basically do three things. First, they significantly invest in affordable housing. Second, they move unsheltered homeless individuals closer to safety and services. And third, it creates a criminal justice referral system that incentivizes those with the criminal history to seek housing, services, and or treatment. We're working with many of the mayors in this forum today around tax deferrals and abatements at the state level to help projects pencil out. We're asking our state legislature to allow us to use urban renewal areas to create more affordable housing. Locally, we're identifying up to 400 shovel-ready sites that could be used to spearhead some of this development with those resources. And we have a lot of work to do because we have about a 20,000 unit shortage. When it comes to bringing services closer to people who need them, what we are doing is, rather than having hundreds of encampments spread across the city where we don't have enough resources to go to each camp, we are creating service hub encampments where people will come and they will have direct access to whatever services they need: drug treatment, healthcare, behavioral health services, job training, whatever else. And we've already got sites that we're negotiating. We have a service provider locked down. The council already allocated $27 million for this purpose. And we need the state to come and join us, and we need the county to come and join us to make this effective. I want to just finish with a couple of more statistics. First of all, 8 out of 10 homeless individuals recently surveyed by our outreach workers said they would not go to an indoor congregate shelter. 8 out of 10. And about 7 out of 10 said they would go to an outdoor designated campsite if it was stable, secure, and hygienic and connected to services. And that's what we are doing. I know that my fellow mayors have asked a lot of questions. I know there's a lot at stake here, but the bottom line is we need to act now. We don't have time to wait. We have to see this as the emergency, the crisis it is, not only a humanitarian crisis, potentially an economic crisis, as well as indicated by several of my colleagues here. No city, and certainly not Portland, can wait any longer for this approach to be implemented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Just as a follow-on to your comments about P2P and fentanyl, 2 weeks ago, I attended the CATCA conference in Washington, D.C., where the director of the DEA said this is the first time they're seeing a shift away from plant-based drugs to fully synthetic chemical ones because it's cheaper, easier, and more potent. And that's what they're foreseeing as the new thing, that they'll be moving away from organic drugs and more into these chemical and synthetic things that they can crank out super cheap, sell, and super potent. And that's what we're facing with fentanyl and the new version of meth. Thank you for bringing those points up. Next up is Mayor Pulliam of Sandy, and Mayor Rosener's on deck.
Thank you. First, like Mayor Wheeler, I'd like to thank Greater Portland Inc. and all the other mayors for participating in this forum. You know, despite any urban, rural, political, ideological differences, there's something just very real and different about being a mayor. We don't really have a choice, but real pragmatic leadership when you're in a position like this. You know, as far as Sandy's legislative ask, we have a ask of over $14 million from the legislature to go towards our water infrastructure. You know, I hear and totally agree with Mayor Lacey from Beaverton my daughter's Lucy, Mayor Lacey from Beaverton, when she talks about these unfunded mandates. Quite frankly, housing is an unfunded mandate. You know, Sandy has been top 5, top 2 fastest growing communities in Oregon. We have added to middle housing, high density housing. We've done our part. What's not talked enough about is with a consent decree with DEQ, we are under a housing moratorium at this point. And so when you talk about unfunded mandates, it really is imperative that state leadership steps up and really helps facilitate communities like ours with our water and wastewater infrastructure as we really step up to the plate to help address these housing needs. As far as economic development, you know, we throw just enormous professional wrestling events in Sandy. I kid. What we do is, Sandy's always been really the little engine that could. We actually led the world in rural broadband for over 20 years of having good high-speed internet for our community out here. We're incredibly proud of our transit, our Sandy area metro that we have here in our community. As you drive through our community, you may notice our architectural style, where we have a facade grant improvement and strong tenant improvement to really help. We're a pioneer community. So to really help some of these older buildings really come online and to facilitate our growth in our business sector. Perhaps the biggest thing we've done in recent years is it'll be completed in the fall, is the extension of Bell Street to 362nd. If you drive through town to go up the mountain, you may have stopped at Fred Meyer's. That's the right turn you take. We're going across the road there. That's going to open up over 80 acres of prime commercial development right along Highway 26. A large portion of it will be a housing that goes into that. So exciting things happening in Sandy. I'm not going to go too long, but thank you again, everybody, for both having me and participating in this call today.
Thanks, Dan. Tim, City of Sherwood.
Great, thank you, Frank. I also want to add my thanks to GPI and the Metro Mayors Association for putting this event on. It's a great way to connect. A lot of great comments coming from all the mayors today. I wholeheartedly agree fundamentally with a lot of what is being said. I just want to point one thing. I do have one disagreement. Mayor Batey, respectfully, I don't know if you got the memo, but Sherwood is the greatest city in Oregon. Just wanted to point that out.
Also want to point out, like 6 of you have said my name, so I think I did my job.
There you go. But in reality, I spent most of my career in my professional life selling software and services to cities in 37 states. And so I've had exposure to a lot of different states and cities and counties and how they do things. And Oregon does it really well compared to the rest of the country. We have a lot of great run cities here. But, in terms of getting back to Sherwood, our legislative agenda, it pretty much aligns with what a lot of I'm hearing here. We're really focused on home rule issues, making sure that we have the tools coming from Salem to solve for things like homelessness, housing, affordable housing, middle housing, workforce, all those types of issues. And we're pretty active in Salem on those issues. A couple things I want to point out, we have a very large broadband network that flows through 3 counties, Washington, Clackamas, and Yamhill. And we've been doing that since about 2004. And so we're really active right now in Salem with a lot of the broadband funds that are coming to the federal government to make sure those funds get out to our communities in need around the state. In terms of, I do want to focus on economic development a little bit in the city of Sherwood. Sherwood is considered a bedroom community. We're about 85% residential. We have 20,000 people that live here. 9,000 of those folks, our workforce, leave town to work every day. And we have about 3,000 people that come in every day. Most of the people coming into town are for our minimum wage, retail type jobs. We only have 700 people that live and work in Sherwood, which is crazy. So we're really focused on 2 things around that. One is, as Mayor Lenahan pointed out, is balancing our tax base. It costs us about $1.25 for every dollar we bring in residential property taxes to service those areas versus 50 to 75 cents for industrial and commercial areas. So it's really important that we bring balance to our tax base. And so a lot of work's going into that. And then we also want people to be able to live and work in Sherwood. That's important. So about 4 years ago, our council, we put together a council vision and kind of shifted the city's direction away from 100% focus on residential to a high focus on economic development. And we've really built that team up within the city. Some of you may know Bruce Coleman, who's just our economic development manager, who is amazing and is doing a wonderful job for the city. So, on that journey, we changed that focus. We've really been looking at all of our industrial land and how do we make that ready, development ready for businesses to come into our towns. we've had some wins around that. We were able to get a $3 million earmark in the latest omnibus bill to build some infrastructure through the Tonquin employment area that will open all that up. We had a great project with Trammell Crow, who came into an area that traditionally you would have thought is really hard to develop because it's all bedrock. And they had to move millions and millions of pounds of rock to get it flat enough that they could put in about 430,000 square feet of industrial space. But they made lemonade out of lemons, because they took that rock, they crushed it, and now they're filling a need for crushed rock for all the construction that's going on in the Portland metro area. So some really creative solutions to make hard to develop land available for development. And as a result of that, we've got some great businesses that are now making Sherwood their home. We have NSI, DW Fritz, and Lamb Research that are making investments in Sherwood and bringing jobs to Sherwood, which we really appreciate. We also have some projects that are in the works with Schnitzer Properties right now to bring almost 1 million square feet of multi-tenant space into our city limits. We really appreciate that partnership. And one thing I want to highlight with that, and the mayor of Lake Oswego was pointing out this, we're really focused on making the process easy for the developers to come in and the businesses to come in and work with us. We have a red carpet team that includes our city manager that meets with these project managers on a regular basis to make sure that we are helping to guide them through the process of working with our planning department and our engineering department, and also working through kind of the regional processes. You know, one of the things we've noticed is organizations that are coming to us from out of state that are not familiar with our land use processes. It can be a little bit of a struggle and a little bit scary once they get to understand how we operate here. So we found that really valuable in bringing businesses and opportunity into our city. So we're working really hard on economic development. We have about, in terms of industrial land in the CHIPS Act and some of the work that's going on in Salem, we have about 250 acres of really flat prime industrial land in our urban reserves on the west side of town that we're hoping to bring traded sector, semiconductor related businesses into that area as well. So anyways, I think I about covered everything I wanted to cover, but Sherwood's a great place to do business, and we're rolling out the red carpet. So thank you. And thank you, Frank.
Thanks, Tim. All right, we're in the home stretch here, guys and ladies. So I'm going to go with Mayor McEnerny-Ogle, the Mayor Fitzgerald, and I'll wrap it up. Mayor Ann, you're up.
Thank you so very much. I know we have about 7 minutes left. We're very different from the cities in Oregon with our tax structure. But for the most part, everything you've heard today is the exact same issues that we have here in Vancouver and Clark County. Our top legislative priorities are not just in Olympia, though. We actually do come down and lobby in Salem, and we go back to Washington, D.C. I-5 bridge, #1, mega project. The investment is huge. All of our heights, we have sub-area plans, major projects up in the heights, and then earmarks for all of our climate action frameworks. If you're in our neck of the woods, stop by. I'll take you out for a coffee, or we'll walk the waterfront and treat you to a milkshake. But nothing that you've heard today is any different, just the funding opportunity. Thanks, Frank. I enjoyed listening.
Mayor Ann. Mayor Fitzgerald, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor Bubenik. I really support everything that we've heard today, home rule and developing housing. Very supportive of the Oregon Mayors Association homelessness solutions initiatives that are tied to tailoring to city needs. A couple of things that I wanted to add that have not been said is one of the things that Wilsonville does to help attract businesses, keep our city industrial areas ready and continue to work on making them shovel ready. We also developed a program in 2020 before I was mayor, kudos to the prior council, called Wilsonville Investment Now. And it is a tax increment financing program that aims to attract high value investments from a wide range of businesses. And it has a flexible evaluation criteria that provides multiple tiers of benefit, including rewards for Wilsonville-owned businesses and those prioritizing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And it's a rebate. It only comes to them after they have fulfilled those goals. And Wilsonville is a city that has really built itself since it was incorporated in 1968 to be favorable to high wage jobs and traded sector industrial occupations. And like some of the other cities, a few of them that are close to agriculture, we recognize the traded value sector of the French Prairie farmlands that are next to us and some of the economic benefits that come to our city and neighboring cities from that farmland. So we really advance our physical infrastructure to support our economic development, and we'll continue to do that. This year, we're looking at urban renewal to see if that might be a tool that we would use to advance the complete transformation of our downtown. Since we're split by the freeway, we have challenges there, but we have our town center master plan that we're really excited about. And we just finished the master plan for Frog Pond East and South, which will accommodate up to 1,800 homes. And so just real quickly, I'll close by talking about some of our legislative priorities that haven't really been mentioned yet. One is around transit. We just provided testimony yesterday to a hearing of the Joint Transportation Committee on proposing that ODOT conduct a study of extending the West Side Express service, the West commuter train that now only goes from Beaverton to Wilsonville. It was never finished in its initial conception. We are asking them to study bringing that all the way to Salem. We have strong support for that study from 7 cities. We're also very supportive of the reauthorization of the fund to help regionally significant industrial land sites develop. And last 3 that I will mention is our council is also, as we heard from Mayor Batey, I'll give you one more call out there. We are interested in developing funding programs to subsidize childcare resources that improve workforce availability, and also increasing high-speed broadband access and distribution, as you heard from Mayor Rosener. So I think those are some of the unique things I will say, and I will also buy you a cookie or a milkshake if you come to Wilsonville.
Thanks, Julie. All right, so wrapping this up, because I know we want to have some time for Q&A. In Tualatin, we have no specific asks at the legislation this year, but we are tracking several bills. Any bill that's related to funding or critical infrastructure that provides incentives for needed housing so there are more affordable housing options, we are very interested in. Any bill related to houselessness, increasing mental health capacity, and drug rehab programs like Mayor Wheeler was talking about. And we are very interested in any bills related to transportation, particularly tolling. I'm surprised no one's talked about tolling today, but we are very interested in tolling as we represent both Washington County and Clackamas County in Tualatin, and I'm a member of the RTAC. So I'll be meeting our next, 5th meeting of RTAC, it's next week. In terms of economic development, down in southern Tualatin, that's what's known as Basalt Creek, we've allocated up to $53 million for infrastructure for greenfield industrial development. That's in our urban renewal zone down in Basalt Creek. And the city is also assisting in the construction of over 600 residential units, with at least 200 units dedicated to permanently affordable housing. SEPA is building a facility down in our southern area. And we are currently modernizing the area's zoning code to allow market development flexibility. On our west side, around near 124th, PGE built their new operations center right near 124th, and Amazon built their distribution facility right next to them. So that was hundreds of millions of dollars of development that occurred here in Tualatin, bringing 500 jobs to Tualatin. And we're finally, it's been long awaited, Washington County has started the expansion of Tualatin Sherwood Road from here through Sherwood. In addition to the recent 124th Avenue expansion, this multi-jurisdictional effort in transportation, we're trying to get traffic off of Tualatin Sherwood Road down to I-5 via 124th. That is the goal. Our other new urban renewal zone is in downtown around the Commons. It's called the Core Opportunity and Redevelopment Area. We're calling it CORA. We've allocated up to $143 million for infrastructure, redevelopment, and transportation projects. In 2029, Tualatin will begin working on what we're calling the Catalyst Project, a multi-story mixed-use development on former environmentally reclaimed land that is currently a gravel lot. This will be located near the West Rail Line and the Tualatin Commons. The city is also looking at revamping our river access with development of a world-class riverfront access and habitat restoration project. Both monies from our recently passed Parks Bond measure and urban renewal will contribute to this effort. In addition to our mixed-use Catalyst project, this will bring massive renewal to our downtown redevelopment effort. We also have a 264-unit apartment complex that will open later this year. You might remember it as the RV Park of Portland over in our Clackamas side of the city near Marine Park Hospital. That will have apartments that are right on the riverfront, giving those folks, access to the Tualatin River Greenway Trail. In conjunction with Oregon Manufacturing and Extension Partnership, the local Chamber of Commerce, Washington County, and former Representative Rachel Prusak, the city has created the Tualatin Made Grant Program. This program is dedicated to helping our local manufacturers navigate the impacts of the pandemic with a focus on workforce retention, business efficiency, and competitiveness. So we basically have like a scholarship program, if you will, for the management of these firms to make, keep those, important employees and become more efficient and competitive. And finally, in terms of industrial development here in Tualatin, we currently have 12.6 million square feet of industrial space with an addition of 325,000 square feet coming on the market in the last year. We currently have 194,000 square feet of construction now. We have a 1.1% vacancy rate. So the city is at capacity, and as a result, we are working to improve our existing industrial area with a primary road expansion project on Herman Road. We're also working with developers in Basalt Creek. Almost all of our new industrial development is pre-leased. And finally, the city has allocated over $70 million in urban renewal and bond fund measures to transportation infrastructure over the next 30 years. And that's my wrap up. So I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Jocelyn if she wants to navigate questions, and we'll give the floor to Maria if she would like to ask a question of any of the mayors.
Yeah, I think ahead of asking questions, we're going to be a little cheesy and ask everybody to smile and take a screenshot of all of your amazing, powerful faces. So we'll do that. I think Anna's going to take the screen grab. So we'll do that in 1, 2, 3, smile. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. And with that, Maria, feel free to ask your question.
Sure. Thank you very much. The leadership and all that you have going on in your communities is truly impressive. As you know, our equipment at Portland General is on every side of your streets, underground. Our operations are in most of your communities. We're thrilled, Mayor Bubenik, with our new integrated operations center. And in Sherwood, we have our new training center, as we all know that professional linemen, substation operators, and others need to be trained to fill in for those who are beginning to retire. As you look at your communities, what more could we be doing at Portland General to help you with the growth that you all have?
One of the things we're going to be looking at here in Tualatin is, in our climate action plan is accessibility of electric vehicles and how to solve the dilemma of how do you put charging stations in multifamily facilities. You can't just limit it to single family housing. So how do you, what's involved with the cost? How do you incentivize getting chargers into apartment complexes?
Thank you, Mayor. That's actually something that Mayor Batey of Milwaukie brought up with me just last Friday, and something that we need to work together on. There are a substantial amount of funds available through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act out of DC, and it's something we should partner with you all as well as with Department of Transportation.
Mayor
Uh,
Beaty has her hand.
Yeah, I was just coming in to say the same thing, and this is a new for you guys to hear that from me. The Beaverton has 50% of our population living in multifamily housing, so getting electric car charging so our renters could share in prosperity, particularly when it comes to rebates from the federal government. I'm lucky. We have a federal lobbyist, a state lobbyist, a local government lobbyist. Most cities don't have that. And so I could see PGE playing a really pivotal role as a convener in that conversation for cities that don't have that ability to go after large grants or understanding to the depth that you guys have. So I would say, Maria, I would use your power as an executive to convene a conversation among mayors on how to get this done and maybe tackle this as a regional problem instead of city by city.
That would be fantastic. Thank you, Mayor Beaty.
Mayor Callaway.
Mayor Callaway.
Thank you. More times than not, we as mayors just, think within our city limits. Even though we are engaged with each other regionally, but I think about, a city like Cornelius or Forest Grove, where, they are neighbors, work, their school district is combined, and there may be some great opportunity there, for instance, where two smaller cities, could be supported, by a PGE initiative, where either one in and of itself may not have that nexus or that momentum or that just that critical size. And then even, expanding that out, just looking for more opportunities where more than one city, could be served, depending on how things are planned, constructed, and located.
Thank you, Mayor Callaway. That's very, very, very helpful. And I would also say that's a back at you in terms of ease of permitting between your different jurisdictions as well is really helpful.
Tim, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I do. Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly with the last comments on your question and would support those as well. I want to kind of add an off the wall thing here. You brought up the training center that you guys recently completed in Sherwood, and we are very happy to have you in Sherwood. As you know, you have a fairly large complex in Sherwood.
We do.
Substations and all that. So, that's a great use of that space. But, one thing that would be great is we have a amazing high school with a really wonderful CTE program, and we're partnering with businesses in our areas to provide, a high school to job path. And with that training center there, it'd be great to work with you guys and find ways to connect kids in our schools with career paths within PGE.
We would love to do that. Thank you very much. And I would also say that many of our folks on the front lines are really inspiring for some of our young people, particularly those who want to work outside and want to spend time in technical jobs. So thank you. That's a great suggestion.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you all for including us, and GPI, thank you for convening this terrific forum. I'm sorry we are not all together in person. Clearly, we all do a lot of work with one another, and I look forward to when we next see each other.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you so much, PGE, for your sponsorship. And thank you for staying on, everybody, after 1 o'clock. I know we'd be probably in our cars right now traveling to our next appointment. So if anybody has any other questions before we sign off, feel free to ask now. Otherwise, we'll end the meeting. Randy Miller.
I'm unmuted now. I just want to extend my appreciation from the private sector to all the mayors for their spirit of collaboration. At GPI, as we recruit new businesses to the region, all the site selectors tell us how collaborative everybody here is compared to most major regions around the country, where the cities can all fight among each other and try to get the best, get the sales tax revenue, whatever. But the spirit of cooperation here has been tremendous. And I just want to express my appreciation to all of them for that. And thanks, mayors, last week, for those of you that participated in the best practice trips. It was a wonderful session. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Randy. Any other questions? All right, I'm seeing none. Thank you all so much for joining us. This was such a great conversation. We appreciate all of your support and leadership in the region and look forward to hosting you all at our next GPI event. Thank you all.
Thank you.